I don't think, are these, oh, they are on. Okay.
Some are not. Okay, I just checked. Oh, right. He says we're live, yeah. Or
He's like, stop tapping in my ear.
I'd like to thank all 100% of the people that came to the meeting tonight for showing up.
each and every person.
All of you are welcome. We're here to represent them too. This is awesome. A lot of representation tonight.
We're 9 minutes later than normal.
Yes, the 7 people tuning in online. Justin Hurley actually watches it. Always be like, I'm like,
shout
you're
Live?
the only person
Really?
that gets
Oh.
popcorn and sits and
Yeah, but he's a huge nerd.
I'm like, you're sick.
My,
There's something
my
wrong.
parents occasionally tune in.
They
But,
do?
yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Wave to mom and dad.
When I first started,
Funny.
Mrs. Mulligan would say, you're my favorite TV star.
That's right, that's right, that's right, that's right. Yeah, well, that's when it was a real days.
Sweet.
We had to do a live action show.
Pass me the emergency.
Oh.
Thank you.
More secrets, Ed, more secrets. Oh, yeah. We're transparent.
Do we need to wait for 5:45?
We do.
Do we?
We can't start it early,
Okay.
earlier than what we posted it. Sorry.
Quite all right.
I gotta open up my workbook anyway. It's technology. Gotta talk to.
I was gonna say, I could do my
Taco
Tuesday
special, what is it?
post.
Yeah, I am looking for dinner plans. I mean,
We are
serious. What type of
available.
taco-
Tonight, I think, is braised beef. Let me look, because I started to
Tempting.
post
The
it.
timer count.
motion for me.
Yep. All right. Good evening. I'd like to call this Tuesday, December 4th, 2018 meeting of Middletown City Council to order. Please stand and join me in a moment of meditation and the pledge allegiance to the flag. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Mulligan.
Here.
Mayor Mulligan.
Here.
Ms. Vettori.
Here.
All right, our first order of business is city manager reports. Mr. Atkins?
Yes, Your Honor, I got a few things tonight. Wanted to share some good news. The city of Middletown was named one of the winners of the first annual Ohio Success Awards, sponsored by Cincinnati Magazine. The awards recognize the accomplishments of the most successful businesses, nonprofit organizations, and government agencies in Ohio. We were nominated in recognition of our housing committee that was established earlier this year to find solutions to our housing stock. I will be attending an award ceremony in March of this next year at the Ohio State House, and we're excited to be part of that process.
Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done.
Also wanted to talk a little bit about the end of the year. We've had some comments on deficit spending. I wanted to address that a little bit, recap of where we've been, and honestly, a good time to talk about where I think we're going and what I think we can accomplish over the next few years. So we'll go ahead and get started. Go ahead, please. Had a couple comments both from the public and also during the budget process about deficit spending. And I wanted to explain that although the budget says for 2018 that we were going to have revenues of 30 million and we we're going to spend 32, we're not really deficit spending. And I want to explain that so that you and the public, everybody has an understanding. If you look at the top where it says income tax projections, I get with Jake every year and we take a look at what's coming down the road. And to the best of our ability, we make a very conservative estimate of where revenues are going to go for the next year. And when we're doing that, we're talking about the regular course of business. We're talking about the businesses in Middletown. We don't put anything else in there for construction, income tax, anything exotic. It's simply what we think is going to happen to wages next year, fees that we're going to be charging. Next year, we're raising, we raised the building fees for rates, all that. We incorporate all that, and Jake helps me lay out for 3.2% increase for 17, 3% for 18, 2.5% for 19. And that's the revenues that you get on that second line, the 29.6, the 30.8, and the 30.2 for 2019. And then we've got an end of year balance that's based on where we think we'll end up at the end of the year. Well, we have had NTE, we've had the school district, we've had Kettering, now we've got Opus. We don't know exactly how much that's going to be, and we don't know when that's going to hit. So we don't incorporate that into your revenues each year. But what happens is, as you look at, you go down 17, when you got the 17 budget, it was going to have a balance at the end of the year of 4.5 million. When we got to the end of 17, we actually had a balance of 5.75 million, which means we were up 1.24 million over our budget. So what we have done, and again, because we're creating a budget in August, we're estimating how far up we're going to be ahead based on through August or September and what we think is coming. Okay, we think we're going to be about 1.25, and in this case it was $1.3 million ahead. We take the $30 million in revenue, we put all our normal stuff in, and then we add the 17 overage back in to the 18 budget so that, again, it's one-time money. It's not programmed in for salaries and stuff. It's there to pull back and put back on the street someplace and keep us going, but it's really not deficit spending because it's sitting in the bank account extra than what we had planned to do. And so as you see what happens as we get to the end of 18, we've done the same thing again. We're up, we balance, we expect to be up about 2.15 million. So as you get the 2019 budget, you're up, again, theoretically deficit spending 2.15 million. But what it really is the amount that we've got budgeted for revenues plus the 2.5 million that we've gotten in 18 that we did not anticipate having. The nice thing about this is if we get to the end of 19 and all the construction wraps up and everything and we just don't have any extra, your next budget will reflect that. And so the idea is we're not although it says we're $2 million in the hole every year, we're really not. And I want to make sure that both you and the public understood that we are waiting until the money comes in, we have it in our hand, and we're only spending it for that year into the next year. And so I want to make sure that everybody was comfortable with that moving forward. So go ahead, please. And then I want to talk about 5 minutes where we are and 5 minutes where I think we're going to go. You all have been here for varying amounts of time, and so I'm going to do this in about 3 minutes. But when I interviewed for this job back in July of 2014, I gave the crew at that time who was interviewing a 117-page plan that said, these are the things I think we need to do with our government. These are the things, questions that need to be answered, areas that need to be looked at, things that need to be retooled and reworked. And I was blessed to get the job, and go ahead, please. And so, this was the style of what we were trying to do. What are the best concepts? Develop a plan to realize those outcomes, implement the plan with the idea that, I gave council a 5-year plan to return to sustainable revenues. The idea being that every year, we can get to a place where every year we have this much money to put towards things we think are important, like paving, public safety, and all that. And the idea is to build us a model that would allow us to get to that for every year. Go ahead, please. And so, real quickly, we started all the things. You've seen a lot of this, the long-term control plan. We replaced almost the entire department heads and staff. We opened up communications first with Carly and then with Shelby. We had a lot of deferred maintenance, but nobody had actually captured it for years. So I asked each area to capture what is behind. We brought back the fireworks. And so we started putting this place and plan, building the groundwork for what we needed to do. Go ahead, please. And then I tried to figure out, I asked Scott Tadich to update paving. We had originally said it was around $120 million. He did an updated street evaluation of all our streets, and the number was closer to $162 million. And so if we're going to try to hit a sustainable number, I tried to come up with something, even though it was way too long, but it was something that I thought we had a chance to hit. So we backed into, again, the 24-2 number for 15% covered by grants that was provided by Scott. Roads completed, 5 million. Roads completed with the other projects, which meant a lot of it would be the long-term control plan, gave us 107 million that we need to take out of the general fund. And I said, if we put us on a 30-year plan, it's 3.5 million. Maybe there's a way we could build ourselves up to $3.5 million in revenue for paving each year. All right, well, that's a starting point. Now we have real numbers and a real chance, a number of what it would take to get back on a 30-year paving cycle. Go ahead, please. So we added in a little money for parks, a little money for neighborhood infrastructure, nursery beautification, and said if we could get to $3.8 million more than we have in 2016, we could every year do these things for our community. So I said, well, how theoretically would we do that? And the answer is, so we built a model that would allow us to get $3.8 million. And we said, well, again, now we've got a model of what we need and a model of how we could possibly get there. Let's start figuring out how we might actually make that work. Go ahead, please. We did put 425 new families in there at $40,000 household income, which would generate about $300,000 in income tax each year. Nicholas Place has given us 216 upper-level apartments. Fisher Homes is doing very well out in Renaissance. They're averaging about 30 homes a year, which again gets us around 210 new families between 2016 and 2022, which gets us very close to that 425 new families. We're in the neighborhood of where we had hoped to be, or heading that way. Go ahead, please. Property taxes, back to pre-recession levels. NTE is probably going to do that as the value for that's put on. That will get us back to that area. Paying off the mall is $800,000. 2019 is the final year for paying off the mall to take off the roof and put all that back together again, which means in 2020 that money's freed up to be rediverted to paving and other processes. Go ahead, please. Streetlight assessments. We've talked about this generically a few times. Scott is very close to having everything laid out. My guess is you'll see it in January. The conversion for LED. Once that is done, we will save about $300,000 a year in electric by switching from incandescent to LED fixtures after we pay off the conversion. We are also, if you remember, we've got the OKI 2022 project, which is about $4.5 million for downtown. We will have some downtown lights that are ours that are not going to be a part of that project that we will need to be replacing, so we will probably factor that in. And as we've gone through the housing committee process, we have identified a few neighborhoods where the neighborhoods are fairly dark. There's just not sufficient street lighting for safety purposes. And so as we get to you in January, you're probably going to see the conversion costs plus a small factor to get us to where by 2022 we can replace all of the downtown lights. And then also, again, some small factor that will allow us to add lighting in those neighborhoods as we go in to revitalize certain neighborhoods like Oakland. We will be able to add street lighting where it's appropriate. There are standards out there for how much street lighting per candle lumens per whatever. We will be looking at those and trying to come up with an idea of, will an LED, will a brighter light take care of it, or do we actually need to add more poles? Those are the types of questions we'll be answering. But my guess is January or February, you'll be seeing that, and it will incorporate all of those things into it. The nice piece is, as we revitalize neighborhoods, as we get the money for the downtown stuff, as we pay off the LED conversion, that assessment, if we're going to do it, can be dropped back down. Instead of paying $800,000 a year for streetlights, we'll be down around $500,000, which means if we're going to continue to do that and divert other money to paving, again, you've got the ability to reduce that assessment over time. We'll bring that for your consideration. We'll show you all the ups and downs of doing it. Obviously, that's up to you whether or not you want to do that. Go ahead, please. So again, if you're looking at that, we've got roughly we're close on the 425 families. We're close on the property tax. We will pay off the mall if you choose to do the streetlight assessments. Everything else on that would have to have been covered by jobs from 2016 to 2020 to hit that $3.8 million number. Go ahead, please. And you're pretty close to that. Your 2019 general fund budget's $30.2 million. You're about 1.6 off of where you need to be. You pay off the mall, you free up $800,000. If you assess for your street lights, and I put the 2019 budgeted expense of $710,000 in, just because I had that number solid. You're 99% where you'd hope to be by the time you start 2020. So you're close to where I had hoped to be able to get us by the beginning of 2020. Go ahead, please. So, and again, 2017, some of you were not yet on council at that time, but we had gone through and done priority for discretionary dollars and let you guys rank them from high, medium, and low. This is how it turned out. And the categories, again, were paving, downtown, deferred maintenance, transportation, quality of life, beautification, ED and workforce development, public safety, housing, and city marketing. And so we've been starting to work on that. Go ahead. If you remember, starting in 2016, we started with community visioning, which was adopted in 17 by City Council. We've started work on the master plan, which should be done at the end of this year, beginning of next year. As you get to downtown, we have the downtown master plan, which was adopted in 17. 2018, we saw the River Center. 2019, we'll work on the bike path up from the River Center into downtown. 2020, we've already got on the books the bike path from Middletown to Franklin to complete the last part of the larger Riverway bike path. And then in 2022, you've got the $4.5 million OKI downtown project, which is Central Avenue from University down to Canal, Clark, whatever street they've got that laid out. Housing policy discussions, we've got the Oakland project coming together. We'll meet back in January with housing to start talking about what else we want to do. Ryan would like to build 273 homes over the next 4 years in Sawyer's Mill, which means they would be completed in 2022. The transportation plan, I'm meeting with them, I believe, on Friday this week to kick that off. We will work on a complete transportation plan for the city. 2019 in your budget, you've got a parks master plan. And again, as you look down, the downtown master plan was a medium priority, and we've got a plan to do that. Housing and beautification, we've got taken care of in the master plan. Transportation, recreation, all of that is incorporated into these plans. And as part of the 2020 plan up in the top right corner, you have money allocated from the plan to start working on those priorities. So, the idea is, again, to start implementing the things that we said we wanted to do and that we now are starting to get revenues to be able to implement. Go ahead. So you've got now an idea on how you're going to implement your downtown master plan. We're working on transportation, quality of life and recreation and health, city beautification, go ahead. Paving, this was the slide I showed you a little bit back ago that said if we could do these things, we might be able to get to a 30-year paving cycle. Go ahead, please. I think you have the ability to get to a 20-year paving cycle within the next 4 years. If you look at, we'll start at the top left. This is what we've actually done in paving each of the last several years. You've got $2.3 million in the budget for next year. I left 2020 at zero. It won't be at zero, but we've got the University Bridge, which is a $2-point-something million project all out of the general fund. We've budgeted for it. We're saving for it. It'll be ready to go in 2020. But I just put no paving in. Again, if you free up, if you assess for streetlights and divert the money we're currently spending there over to paving, you pay off the mall, you send it over, you take that $2 million up to $3.5 million in 2021 and 2022. You theoretically will do about $25.2 million instead of $5 million, which is what we were talking about in 2016. The money from grants, the money from other projects. We've also been talking in our housing area about creating a housing buffer around our heavy industrial areas. I asked Scott to take some of those streets off the map. If you're going to eventually clear all that out, there's no point in repaving those streets. That frees up another $3 million. And you also, he said, you know, I knew you only asked me for paving. He said, but if you do the same thing and you're not going to pave those streets, because you also eliminate about $9 million in water and sewer work from those same streets that you're not going to pave if you're going to take those houses down. And it doesn't come out of the general fund. But the rest of it's housing. If you go in and take the Sawyer's Mill 273 homes at $175,000 average housing price and what the income it takes to buy those homes, you put those into play at the end of 2022, you've got another $418,000 in income tax. Our mean income in 2016, which is last census data that's available, was $49,000. If you do Oakland and start working on some other revitalization, if you could reoccupy 300 of those vacant 3,000 homes, if you could infill 100 new homes as part of what we're doing, you would generate theoretically by 2022 another $765,000 every year in income tax. You add that to the $3.5 million that you've already got through 2020 by paying off all the other stuff we've done and building out that. All of a sudden, you're now at $4.2 million a year in income tax. And by 2022, you are in the model somewhere around a 20-year paving cycle. Now, a lot of ifs in there. But the idea is to start taking us from where we are in 2020, build us to the next level, which is, again, if we could get us to a 20-year paving cycle by doing things with our housing and doing things in a different way, that would be cool. So go ahead. So that it gives you an idea how you could move forward on your paving. Go ahead. Economic development, we've spent a lot of the last 2 or 3 years working on developing our tools, our one-stop shop, our school district agreement, those types of things. We've updated the airport master plan, which Matt's working on, retail, all the jobs we've added, again, through various ways, some of them from our work, some of them because we happened to be in the right place when those companies decided they wanted to move here. We take them, whether they're for whatever reason, we're happy they're here. Go ahead, please. The 40 or so downtown businesses, that have opened over the last 4 or 5 years. Go ahead. A lot of work that we've been talking about at the airport and we'll continue to talk about. City marketing, which was a medium priority, that we've also added updated brand guidelines, all the work that Shelby's doing, invigorated the MVB, social media, popular annual report, all of that. Go ahead, please. So we now have, again, a plan for workforce development, economic development, and city marketing. Go ahead. Public safety. When I had talked to the council in 2016, I said, if we did some changes over the next 4 or 5 years, I think that we can increase the number of public safety officers and potentially add 2 new fire stations and be at about the same expenditure that we were at in 2016. Go ahead. I'm going to amend that to say I think we can do even better than that. By 2022, the one thing that did change that we did not anticipate, but I think we can still incorporate, is the heroin epidemic. What used to be a small narcotics division is now a large narcotics division, frankly. even though the numbers came out for November and year-to-date we're 48% down on overdoses for the year. Calls for service are down, crime is down. But the idea is we ended up having to spend more for public safety than I think we wanted to. But I think with the changes that we're suggesting for you by closing the jail over time, I think we can get from 65 officers in 2016 up to 73 officers in 2022. Go ahead. Fire, we've worked very hard on implementing the split, 60-40 split between the paramedics and the EMTs. I think now you can get your 2 fire stations and you'll actually come in less because of the work we've done extending the steps and going to the lower EMT classification. You will actually spend less to end up with 10 more firemen than you had in 2016. Go ahead, please. What that does for you is when you add it all together is you end up about flat. You end up about 300,000 more than you were spending in 2016. You have 7 or 8 more police officers. You have 10 more firemen than you had in 2016. You're spending about the same amount of money, but because our general fund has been growing with the growth that we've been experiencing, your cost for public safety is down to about 63%, where it was up around 72% back in 2016. So I think you've got a lot of positive things going on in public safety. Go ahead. That deals with public safety. Go ahead. Housing stock, we've been working on for about the last year and a half. Again, the idea is to balance our housing stock so that no matter where you are in the housing cycle, whether you're a young person just getting your first place to live or you're a senior getting ready to go into retirement housing of some kind, the entire gap. If you want to stay in Middletown, we have desirable housing here that allow you to move up and move down and stay inside the city. On the right-hand side is what the Housing Committee has been working at since May. They've been working on all these issues, setting up some basic ideas of how we want to handle all of these as we move forward for revitalization of neighborhoods. Go ahead. The nice thing is the original 2020 plan that I had given to council has money for parks, neighborhood infrastructure, trees, beautification, wayfinding. We also have $650,000 in CDBG annually, $350,000 in home annually. You've got $1 million to put for it without ever touching the general fund. And of course, you've got the Oakland project that's coming on board, we hope next year, to start developing the Baltimore neighborhoods. You've got some other tools there if we decide they're advantageous for us to use. Go ahead. So you've got an idea of where we can go on housing. Go ahead. Last one was deferred maintenance. The nice thing is as we've gotten NTE money in and school district money in from the $90 million in schools, we have started picking away at these. We've already done the HVAC controls for the city building. We are starting on the pavers next year in the 2019 budget. We have updated some of the security in the building. There'll probably be a second wave coming in 19 or 20. We've already replaced the rooftop. We've got the infrastructure for Hook Drive in the 2019 budget. The downtown amenities will come into play as we do the OKI project and other things. Fire, I'd like to compliment them. All the things, not all the things, but almost all the things on this list, fire department over the last 3 or 4 years has found grants to replace almost all this equipment. There's been a small match, but they have done an outstanding job finding grant money to do these long, expensive equipment replaces. And police, they've done their own repairs as part of what they've done. Most of this has been taken care of over the last few years. We've nickeled and dimed it as extra money came in, again, without touching a lot of the things that we've been talking about for paving and the other things. Go ahead, please. And so that kind of gets you the whole gamut of where we're going. I think the next 4 years are very exciting. We said before, we knew at some point that the area was going to grow together, whether it becomes a statistical metropolitan area or not. Cincinnati's coming this way, Dayton's coming this way, and it's all about being ready to do that. We've done an awful lot to get ready. I think we've got an awful lot of the pieces in place to be ready now to take that when it comes. And so I'm very excited about the next 3 or 4 years and where we're heading. Go ahead. And then the last piece, of course, is we solved the long-term control plan. So you have a plan now for the next 25 years for your water and sewer infrastructure. You guys have done a lot in the last 4 or 5 years to put the city back together. It helps that the economy was good. It helps that we got some construction. But there's a lot of cool things going on, and it's just, go ahead. It's just very important. I still hear so many times that, oh, we're just Middletown. We just talk bad about ourselves, and I hate that. The stuff I've just shown you, does not contain any construction revenue, income tax. It does not fill any of the 1,000 jobs that everybody keeps talking about that are open in the city of Middletown. Hospital theoretically has 300, the chamber says we have 700 manufacturing. The stuff I've shown you doesn't include any of that. It doesn't include anything our economic development team is gonna bring to you over the next 4 years. And so we're in a really good place. You know, we're not prosperous, but gosh, I can see it. And so I just want to tell you how excited I am about where we're headed and what we're doing. I think there's an awful lot of fun things going on in this city. Go ahead, please. And I'm done talking.
Good. All right, well, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Atkins?
I did have one question, but first, great presentation. Thank you for doing that, and thanks for your work. I'm going to assume, since you addressed public safety, that them as well as the non-unionized folks, all those numbers included the 2% cost of living and steps and all that stuff was?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I want.
Anything else? All right, thank you. Well, that brings us to the comments. I've received no cards this evening, so we can move to our consent agenda. Ms. Skank?
For your consideration this evening, we have the approval of the city council minutes from November 20th, 2018. To receive and file the board and commission minutes from the Board of Zoning Appeals from June the 6th, 2018. The Planning Commission from August 8th, 2018. The Architectural Review Board from August the 23rd, 2018. The Historic Commission from September the 20th, 2018. To confirm the personnel appointments of Mason Riley, dispatcher, the Department of Public Safety, Division of Police, Jay Sparker, and Tyler Knopf, maintenance workers in the Department of Public Works and Utilities, Division of Street Maintenance. Receive and file oaths of office for Daryl Higgins, Austin Mooney, and Rebecca Janae Moorer. To purchase liquid phosphate, sodium hexametaphosphate for use at the water treatment plant from Shannon Chemical Corporation of Malvern, Pennsylvania, in the amount of $5.07 per gallon for the estimated usage of 9,450 gallons, approximately $47,911.50. To purchase liquid chlorine, sodium hypochlorite from Univar of Cincinnati, Ohio, in the amount of 94 cents a gallon for use at the water treatment plant, and from Miami Products and Chemical Company of Dayton, Ohio, in the amount of 82 cents per gallon for use at the wastewater treatment plant. To authorize a contract with Pentura Incorporated for the purchase and installation of new playground equipment at Smith Park. To receive and file maintenance and performance bonds submitted by Grand Communities LLC, guaranteeing public improvements constructed as part of a Renaissance 2, Section 10 subdivision. To confirm board and commission appointments of Middletown Visitors Bureau, Heather Mason, Julie Osbach, and Lindsay Pittman. Board of Health, Dr. Ken Patrick. Middletown Cemetery Board, Frederick Tyson, Ken Blanford. Historic Commission, James Stabler, and the Park Board, Irene Earl.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion for the issues and actions as presented on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon?
Yes?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes?
Ms. Vittori?
Yes.
All right, we have one motion item this evening.
To confirm Councilman Joe Mulligan as an officer on the Butler County Land Reutilization Corporation Board of Directors.
Okay. A motion for that?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion or comment? Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vittori?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes?
Mr. Moon?
Yes?
All right, brings us to council comments this evening.
Thank you, Your Honor. First, I express thanks to the organizers of the Santa Parade. It was the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and the weather cooperated, and the crowds were great, and the performers were excellent too. So that was a great way to kick off the holiday season in downtown Middletown. And just some additional comments on Mr. Adkins's presentation. It is pretty stark how different it is from 2012 when we were at a council work session and we were about 3 years away from the fiscal cliff, and we were talking about, you know, if we continue to do business the way we have been doing business, the city would be bankrupt in 3 years from that point. So I applaud city staff and your senior team and everybody working together to really modernize government and take us away from that and move us in a much better direction. And it is going to be an exciting next 2, 3, 4 years for Middletown. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bohannon?
Thank you.
I'd like to thank all the organizers of the Main Street Historical Walk this weekend. Very enlightening, very beautiful to be exact. Also, this Saturday is Shop with a Cop at Myers, going to start about 7 o'clock in the morning.
That's it. Very good. Ms. Vittori?
I would like to thank the organizers of the Historic Home Tour. I know it was a great night out, and this weekend is First Friday, as always. I think there's a bunch of fun holiday things going on, and Elf Fest, I believe, is Saturday with some tree lighting and other special events. They always put a lot of great things into the downtown Middletown events, so come one, come all.
Good. Vice Mayor Moon?
Yes, I'll just also mention, thank everybody for the opening their homes for the historic South Main open house. So many wonderful things going on, beautiful homes, and look forward to doing it next year in the Highlands.
Very good.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. I'll echo those comments. I do want to acknowledge all the downtown businesses that opened up, especially on Sunday, and thank them for their participation. I saw a couple folks early this week, and they were very complimentary of the increased activity downtown, which was encouraging to see. So sounds like people came down and stayed, which was what we were hoping for. And of course, the weather cooperated, so I got to take credit for that, I guess. But no, it was a great event. And also want to congratulate the hospital and the charity ball for the 99th annual charity ball. That was I missed it this year, but always a nice event, and certainly appreciate the partnership with Miami and their hosting that. That's always a great event to again bring on the holiday season. And I think we also have Merry Middletown coming up in downtown Middletown too, don't we? That's on, I think, the 15th. So lots of good activities in downtown and really throughout town to celebrate and recognize the holiday season. So, and with that, we can move on to our legislation for this evening. Ms. Fox?
Yes, Your Honor. This evening, there are 5 items of legislation, 3 of which are emergencies. Therefore, we will need a motion to waive the charter provisions requiring 2 separate readings. And those would be in regards to resolution number R 2018-30, resolution number R 2018-31, and resolution number R 2018-32.
I move to waive the charter provision requiring readings on 2 separate days and to declare the previously read resolutions an emergency measure to be read one time only.
Second?
Okay, Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Mulligan,
Yes.
Ms. Vittori,
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes?
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
First is resolution number R 2018-30, a resolution authorizing transfers from the Central Avenue Sidewalk Curb and Gutter Fund and the Employee Benefits Fund to the General Fund for repayment of prior year advances and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Any other discussion or comments? Okay, Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Vittori,
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes?
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Resolution number R 2018-31, a resolution authorizing transfers from the General Fund to the Neighborhood Stabilization Program Fund and the 2018 Sidewalk Curb and Gutter Fund and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Any other discussion or comments? All right, Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes?
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan,
Yes.
Ms. Vittori.
Yes.
Resolution number R 2018-32, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, Counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio, for the period ending December 31st, 2018, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved?
Second.
Okay, in a second. Okay. Any other discussion or comments?
Your Honor, just briefly, we did send out a update to this ordinance. Does not change any of the additional appropriation or anything, but we did transfer some additional money and include that in your updated final version.
See that. Thank you. Okay. All right, with that, Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan,
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes?
Ms. Vittori.
Yes.
Ordinance number O 2018-84, an ordinance authorizing an amendment to the Community Reinvestment Area Agreement between the City of Middletown and Mark and Tracy Barnett. This is a second reading and is ready for action.
Very good, thank you. Do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved?
Second.
Any other discussion or comments? All right, Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mulligan,
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Ms. Vettori.
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon.
Yes?
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Ordinance number O 2018-85, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing an agreement with the Board of Commissioners of Butler County to provide funding for an employee of the Butler County Land Reutilization Corporation. This is the second reading and is ready for action this evening.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion or comments? All right, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Ms. Vettori.
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon.
Yes?
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
All right, our last item this evening is the executive session. So I need a motion of the authority of Ohio Code 121.22 G3 for conferences with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are the subject of pending or imminent court action.
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Vettori.
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon.
Yes?
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes. All right. Following the executive session, we'll be in recess to our meeting on December 18th in these chambers. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Your Honor.